Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dare County Board of Commissioners Monday, November the 18th Board of Commissioners meeting. I'd like to ask at this time if George Laurie, the Jewish community of OBX, would come forward and give us an invocation. George, welcome this evening.
Welcome. Again, I want to thank the county commissioners for allowing members of the North Dare Ministers Association to open each meeting with a prayer. Seventh time I've been asked to do this, and I always like to do it. I want to start by thanking Chairman Bob Woodard for sharing some memos about the role North Carolina played in helping the folks in Ocracoke and Hatteras Island as a result of Hurricane Dorian, as well as explaining the limited assistance available from FEMA. I know that the Outer Banks Community Foundation played a major role too. While I'm aware that many non-locals came forward to help, I'd like to mention that out of the blue, a Jewish federation in Northeast Florida asked if they could offer any assistance to any Jewish families who were affected by the storm. We have about 7 that I'm aware of in Hatteras. And I contacted my members, and one family came forward, and they received a modest check a week later, which was many more times than we'd be able to offer them. So I know that we gave some small sums to synagogues in Wilmington, I believe during Michael or Florence when they were flooded. So it's always nice to know that there are other Jewish groups out there paying attention to their religious kin. As we approach Thanksgiving, I'm also thankful to know that hidden away from the lack of productive discourse that is Washington, D.C., and many a time in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have our county commissioners and many of our local community leaders who continually strive to make the Outer Banks the best it can be in good times and in bad times. In general, we're civil to one another at all times, show no malice, are considerate of all opinions, and exhibit a level of grace and decency in our speech, in our actions, and in our postal distributions. God demands that you show respect to your fellow human beings so that they will show respect to you. When I look around this room, I like to think that all of you are here for a reason, known and unknown, to do God's work. Whether Democrat or Republican, I believe you're guided by Almighty God to do the right thing for our schools, our beaches, our hospital, our visitors, and our Outer Banks community. So let us bow our heads for my favorite Thanksgiving prayer. Holy One of blessing, you are the rock of our life and the power that shields us in every age. We thank you and sing your praises for our lives which are in your hand, and for our souls which are in your keeping. You are goodness, your mercies never end. You are compassion, your love will never fail. You have always been our hope. Soften our hearts and open our minds. Grace us with your light when our path grows dark, with your strength when we grow weary, and with your support when we falter in our resolve. King of the universe, you have sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us to do your work for the betterment of the Outer Banks. Be with all those who serve Dare County on a daily basis. Guide them and all our citizens to realize that we are all the children of this Almighty God. May this be God's will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Have a blessed Thanksgiving, blessed holiday season.
Thank you, George. May we stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Couch is not here this evening. He's at the Fedison Center. He, like many of our Hatteras residents, are not able to get through 12. 12 is still being worked on from NCDOT, and we hope to have that cleared sooner rather than later. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the meeting. But Commissioner Couch is joining us, but he is at the Fedison Center on Hatteras Island. Before we move forward further in the agenda, I'd like to ask the board's consideration to amend the agenda and move item 7 to item 2A.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by the vice chairman, and it's been seconded by Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Motion carried unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. County manager?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, item 1 on the agenda is the chairman's update.
Excuse me. Thank you. Last couple of big weeks have been really busy weeks for us, and just to bring you up to date on a couple of things, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners District Meeting was held early in the month, and the county manager and I attended that. It's we just go to those meetings and we get updated on what's taking place, and we share what DARE's items that are important to us with our fellow district commissioners, chairman and county managers. And it's a very good meeting and very helpful to see what other counties are doing and certainly share with them what's on our plate. I also, the county manager and myself attended the Southern Shores Council meeting recently, just to bring them up to date on nourishment issues. They had some issues with respects to moving forward with a potential beach nourishment plan that they may have in the works. And then we shared with them the funding for the studies for Avon as well as Southern Shores that we've provided for them. So it was a very good meeting, and county manager was very helpful sharing with them the way the formula works and how they needed to, what steps they needed to take to move forward for a nourishment program. The Outer Banks Home Builders Association had a meeting just this past week, and I was able to be the keynote there, and I want to thank our Public Information Officer, Dorothy Hester, for attending that meeting with me. We continue to share the COA story throughout all of Dare County, and we're certainly excited to bring that PowerPoint presentation. I think we've done over 20 presentations to date, haven't we, Dorothy?
Yes.
Sharing what our objectives and goals are in Manio for the new COA multi-use facility. We also attended this past week, Commissioner Bateman and Commissioner Ross attended as well, the first annual Educators and First Responders Dinner at Captain George's. We had a good turnout, and I was honored to be able to speak to those folks and recognize our educators and first responders, and understand that Al Freeman was made this the first annual, so we'll be looking to do that in the future. Again, it was just a way to give appreciation to our educators and first responders throughout all of Dare County. And of course, last but not least, the recent storm. We continue, Mother Nature continues to really work on us on the Outer Banks, but we're resilient, and our folks on Hatteras Island are resilient, and NCDOT works extremely hard to keep 12 open, and we're hoping that we can get this open in the next day or so that folks can traverse from the northern beaches to Hatteras Island. So with that, and last but not least, certainly I was fortunate enough to attend 2 of the 3 veterans ceremonies that happened last week. I was able to attend the Nags Head and Kill Devil Hills ceremonies. It was always great to see good crowds at those, and what a wonderful blessing it is to be able to thank our veterans on a special day. And I was not able to make the Manio one, but I understand they had a very good turnout at that one as well. So thank you, veterans that are here this evening, and thank all of you veterans that are out there that has served our country so bravely. With that said, County Manager, that completes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item 2 on the agenda, and this is a presentation by Sheriff Dowdy. Sheriff Dowdy, if you come forward, please.
Good evening, Sheriff,
Good evening.
and thank you for being here.
Well, yes, sir. Actually, this is going to be presented by Kelly. This is being given by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and I couldn't say that whole thing. If I wanted to, I'll mess it up. So I'll let her tell you who it's from, but she's doing the presentation through them. We just supplied the information for the individual that's going to get the award, sir. But thank you very much for having us all here.
Thank
We
you, Sheriff,
appreciate
and
it.
Kelly,
Yes, sir.
welcome again, as always.
Welcome.
And your fellow veterans.
Thank you all so much for allowing us to come out and present it at your Board of Commissioners meeting. So Trey, if you will join us up here, please. Thank you. So Trey Pilum was hired on March 4th, 2013 as an investigator with the Criminal Investigation Division. On December 1st, 2013, he was promoted to be the captain of the Communication Center with the retirement of Major Almy Gray. In early 2014, the County Board of Commissioners approved the building and the construction of the new 9/11 Center, and Trey was designated to assist with the design of the building to make it to be the most optimal design for working and technology-efficient center in the state. Before the center was finished, the county also brought on Terrell and Hyde as county partners when they switched the new center over in April of 2017. The switchover went off without flaw, which was done partially because of Captain Trey Pilum and his hands-on planning. Now, Trey is married to Laura Pilum, who teaches at Nags Head Elementary School and has been there for several years. They have 2 children, Elliot, who's 15 years old and is in the 10th grade at First Flight High School, and Cameron, who's in the 6th grade at First Flight Middle School. Trey has a Master's of Public Administration from East Carolina University, and we're very fortunate to be able to get him at the time that we did. So I'm not sure if some of you all are aware of this incident that happened in June of 2018, which I believe all of you were because you were county commissioners at the time, and it was a pretty big deal. So to steal from his shift officer, this was an email he sent to Sheriff Dowdy the following day. I'm writing you this morning on behalf of myself and my crew because we would like to praise and applaud Trey's actions yesterday regarding the water rescue at the old swimming hole. We received the call at 7:01, and for reasons unknown at this time, Trey was still in the office because he was scheduled to be off an hour or so before that. Upon hearing the call come in, Trey came into the room and asked where and what the call was. Without hesitation, he sprang into action and he responded. When he arrived, he found a Hispanic family standing on the shoreline frantically trying to save their little girl. They couldn't swim, and the dad was standing in knee-deep water to throw an extension cord to her. Unfortunately, she was unresponsive and could not grab hold of it. To make a long story short, Trey jumped into the water and got the little girl back on shore, and with the help of others, got her breathing again. We know this because he came back into the building soaping wet and shared his story. Trey's fast and selfless thinking, without Trey's fast and selfless thinking, that little girl may not be here today. We wanted to bring his actions to your attention and let you know how proud we are of him. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and have a wonderful day. So in recognition of the heroes that we share our community with, the VFW has actually established a life-saving award. So Trey is not only the recipient of the North Carolina, our district, and our Post Life-Saving Award, he's actually the national award recipient as well. So for the VFW, that's saying a huge thing. And I think that in the words of Sheriff Dowdy, I'm again going to steal someone's words. This was in the email that he sent about it. He said, sometimes we as telecommunicators, law enforcement officers, paramedics, and other first responders do. We do without a thought for our safety. We do it for the chance of saving someone else from whatever their emergency is and giving them another chance to be able to be with their loved ones or to make that agonizing situation they are or have just experienced a little more bearable. That's what we're here to do. For most of us, that's why we're in the profession that we have chosen. I thank God that He has given me this great group of people I have on both sides of the call. The ones like you that receive and dispatch it, and the ones that respond to and handle it. You're all special, and I thank you and admire you for it more than you can understand. And I thank God for all of you who are in what you do. As for Trey, going beyond the call is what we know and can expect from him. And to that family yesterday, he was truly their angel of mercy, and I know he would do it again and again and again. So Trey, on behalf of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post, I would like to present you with our life-saving award for the state. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for allowing our post to present that award. And of course, I'm joined by the other members of our lovely post. Chairman Woodard, we miss you. I know that you're working hard for our county, and we're very happy to have you as a representation of veterans on the board.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Trey, congratulations.
You're supposed to be in the
I'm sure.
I'm gonna slide right in behind you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Before the meeting started, as I normally do, just like my fellow commissioners, we walk around the room, talk to folks. I looked over at Trey, and I walked by Trey, and I said, Trey, unusual to see you here this evening. He said, when the boss tells you to be here, you show up. Now, I didn't know which boss he was referring to, if it was Doug or his wife. I'm sure it was hard for the family to keep this a secret. And on behalf of the board, Trey, this is phenomenal, and congratulations for the type of person that you are and what you've done. And I commend you, and I thank you for your family and your parents and for what you do. God bless you. County Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is item 2A, which is number 7 on your agenda, and Mark Browder's here with our medical plan update.
Mark, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. Woodard. Thank you. And there's a presentation that you should have. I don't know if it's going to be put up on the screen or not. All right, so this is, thank you. And I assume this advances, no? Will this advance, or do I need someone else to do it for me? Okay, great. All right, this is the third year in a row that we've been up here to give you an update on the things that are going on within the health plan. I'm going to only do a couple of slides, and then Amy and Sarah are going to do the rest of it. The plan continues to perform very well. The wellness strategies that the county's put in, and the teamwork from the VITA and Outer Banks hospital staff continues to have a solid impact on the employees' health here at the county. And so what I'm going to do is just to give you an update. So I'm going to talk about the plan performance and risk score, which is changes in the health of the population. And then Amy and Sarah are going to do the rest, which is the Outer Banks services, biometric results, keys to the success, cost savings and outreach, and then new offerings and their location. So on slide number 3, here we go. Yeah, slide number 3. The plan trended up about to 9%, but that was driven primarily by high claimants. Overall, the plan was in excellent financial position based on how the plan was budgeted and some of the credits that came back on the risk insurance. There was no budget increase for 2018-19, or 19-20, which is excellent. Emergency room saw a decline across the board for both cost and avoidable ER encounters. And overall, inpatient medical admissions were actually down by 5%. On the preventive screening side, mammography remains steady. Colonoscopy compliance actually went up, and I think Outer Banks Hospital, the clinic had a lot to do with that. And preventive services also remained steady at 48%. And then on slide number 4, predicted cost, looking at the population that had been continuously enrolled in the last 24 months, based on the Milliman adjusted risk score, it was actually lower by 9%, which is an improvement in the overall health of the population. The risk score also predicted that the cost would be about $6.5 million for 18-19. It actually was down about 4% from that predicted score at about 6.2. So all in all, the plan from a financial standpoint continues to perform well. We anticipate a pretty solid renewal for the 2021 year as well. We've met with staff to talk about it, and we'll update them in the next couple of months or so. Amy?
Sorry.
Thank you for having us. It's really hard to follow Trey. I'm Sarah Kirshner. This is Marielle Silk. I'm one of the nurses and the manager of the clinic. Marielle is our nurse practitioner. In the audience, we have Dr. Christina Bowen, who is our medical director and a very intricate part of the clinic as well. This clinic's been around now for 3 years. We've seen a lot of changes. Most recently, we have moved our location. We moved a year ago this week from a smaller space to a more better flow. We're in Dr. Whitson's old office in the medical office building attached to the hospital. And during that move, some of our team has changed. We needed to have a little bit more base and some solid support staff. Last year, we had also taken on spouses, so it increased our panel to about 1,160 folks there, and so we needed a little bit more depth to back that up. In the meantime, we have added Andy Stauffer, who is a registered nurse, Kaylee Thomas, who is our front desk, Robin South, who is a chronic disease navigator for diabetes and stroke, and Jackie Hall, who is a registered dietitian. And of course, Dr. Bowen also came on at that time. With all the staff, they all bring a lot of experience. We have a health coach, one of the only ones in the system for Vidant and Outer Banks that is Duke trained. We have 4 providers in the Vidant system that are certified in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and that's 4 across all Vidant Health, and 3 of those work in our clinic. 2 of those have access to employees, Marielle being one of them, and Jackie, our new dietitian, just also recently passed her boards in one of the first classes of dietitians across the country. With the solid support of our new support staff, excuse me, we've improved our flow, our in and out times are faster, and of course the oversight from Dr. Bowen, who's on site with us 2 days a week, is also very helpful as well. Let's see. Oops. And then our new space, like I said, we've increased our space now to 3 exam rooms, and everyone's under one roof now. So it's really helpful to be able to refer employees where they don't have to travel and go to a different office or reacclimate with new people. The comfort level stays there. The services that we provide have pretty much stayed the same, except expanded with the resources, with our health coach, with our outreach and education, especially with our diabetes and support now that we have someone that specializes in diabetes and stroke education. Nutrition counseling and tobacco cessation have really picked up speed as well, and all these are offered to county employees free of charge. Again, we're still seeing risks for the employees being weight, cholesterol, and blood pressure. The primary source of these conditions is usually obesity. We're working hard with our health coach and our providers to make positive changes. We still have some room to improve, but employees really have worked hard and have really bought in and are really doing strides to take better care of themselves and their families. Some of the things we do in the clinic are health education, disease prevention. We have changed our biometric screening process over the years with feedback from the employees. This year we increased, historically we've done it for different periods of time. The last year we did it for 2 weeks, and then this year we've did it for 4 weeks. We utilized the clinic location. So we had a lot of feedback about privacy. We had a lot of feedback about overcrowding. So less people per day, it provided a more calming environment. Marielle was able to stay in the clinic, and we were still able to see sick visits during that time. So clinic hours weren't really altered very much, and we had our dietitian and our health coach on site to answer questions. Again, staffed by all RNs from the hospital and our clinic. And we worked, at the time, if we found something that was concerning, we worked with that employee right then and there on the start of prevention, encouraged them to come back to the clinic, or if we were already there in the clinic, it also helped, I think, ease some of their maybe anxiety and concerns, because they knew where they were going, they knew us, and they knew that we want the best for them. And so they really have done an excellent job taking care of themselves. That being said, go ahead.
We did see an improvement in some people's blood pressure who typically had gotten more nervous in a different setting having their biometrics, but coming into the clinic to have it done, a lot of people verbalized how much more comfortable that made them, and we saw that in their blood pressure readings as well.
And along those lines, last year 67 employees did not meet the criteria for passing, and this year we only had 35 that did not meet. So that was a significant improvement. We also had a 9% improvement in members with hypertension. We had 50 members last year that were pre-diabetic, and now 23 of these members are no longer in that category. I also credit that to the health department. They're a strong partner that we have. They have excellent outreach and classes. We're currently partnering with them on Prevent T2, which is Prevent Type 2 Diabetes. And they've had the largest enrollment that they've had. There's 18 participants in that class. So, yes, sir.
Sarah, this page 39, when I was previewing this presentation for tonight's meeting,
Yes.
This was unbelievable. These statistics are amazing. I just wanted to be sure to call out these kinds of results. I would never have believed you could do it, but you did. So congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And I think the employees really need to be credited as well. They have buy-in. I think they have a comfort level. I think they have a trust, and we definitely appreciate that and would never take that for granted. Because without them believing in us and us believing in them, I don't think this would work. We also, diabetes, we have 8% no longer have diabetes that were diagnosed before, and A1C, which is an indicator of diabetes, has decreased by 9.7 points on an overall average. So we're very proud of that, very proud of the tobacco users that have put effort to quit. We have 3 of us in the clinic that are tobacco treatment specialists, and I think, again, that just being part of the clinic is so helpful for those employees to have that support when tobacco is a concern, because we know that tobacco is one of the leading causes and contributors to cancer. Again, the keys to success: the right team, employee buy-ins and trust, our relationship we have with human resources, our partnership that we share with the health department. Taking you way back, we opened in September of 2016. And like I said, we first started out with just employees, and now we've added spouses and retirees under the age of 65, which increased that panel to a little bit over 1,100, with a total of 1,726 total visits last fiscal year for us. We're also continuing to focus on healthy eating and lifestyle changes. Like I mentioned before, Marielle is board certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Am I saying that right? If you want to talk a little bit more about that, maybe.
Sure. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine, myself and Dr. Christina Bowen, and now Jacqueline Hall, our dietitian, are all certified practitioners in lifestyle medicine. As Sarah mentioned, we're among the 4 in the Vidant system, and there's 3 of us in one office, which is amazing. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine established not too long ago, and they've seen it grow. They established the boards to make lifestyle medicine something that is very evidence-based, And in order to sit for the boards, you need to study the evidence-based lifestyle changes. So it's great that we've been able to offer that in the clinic. And as the numbers speak of, we've seen a lot of buy-in from the county employees, improving their lifestyle habits, eating healthier, exercising more, quitting smoking. It's been great to see that positive change.
We've also started focusing on stroke education, stress reduction, and we've recently revamped our bi-monthly newsletter. We try to stay in touch with the employees, bring attention to stroke awareness. We've done some lunch and learns where we've gone out and had our stroke educator go out and talk about the risk factors of stroke and check blood pressures. And, a lot of employees take that home to their families as well to help prevent. Quality, I think that's always been a driving factor for us. The fact that we're on the same system as the primary care offices locally at Vidant. We all share information, the confidentiality of medical treatment, the early identification of chronic disease and acute disease. I know Marielle has diagnosed multiple cancers where these folks had not had a primary care and they bounced around a little bit from urgent care to urgent care. And I can take us 2 or 3 that she has detected, and that we were able to get those patients early intervention to better increase their quality of life and better outcome. We have, like I said, early detection of chronic disease, no copay, which removes barrier to care. We have the ability to bring folks back. Where typically an office might have sent them to the hospital, we can bring them back daily, observe them, give them medications or injections to keep them out of the hospital, out of the emergency room. And I think folks understand now what to use us for and what our limitations are. Every now and then we still get someone that walks in with chest pain. That's not what we do, but that's why we have these guys back here, EMS, to help us out. But we really do work hard to keep them out of the emergency room when appropriate, plug them into screening and prevention, and make sure that it's a continuum of care follow-up. Marielle sees them every time. They see the same staff every time, so we can really monitor whether they're improving or whether they're declining. Go ahead.
The not having a copay is so beneficial as a provider to be able to bring somebody back in, a couple days later to make sure they're okay, make sure their wound is improving, cellulitis or pneumonia, to truly be able to see them as frequently as I would want without having to worry about the financial burden it would place on them is really a blessing. So I appreciate that.
And also early return to work. Unfortunately, work-related injuries do happen, and we're able to work with their supervisors, get them plugged back into work on a light duty status, so that way they're not losing time, they're not losing money, and they're still able to be productive at work. The last thing is a quote. I won't read it to you word for word. This is one of our patients that we've seen over the years, and we've seen really grow, and she's relied on us in times of need, and it was very kind of her to write this for us, and I think she speaks a voice of all the employees when she says, "Thank you, Dare County, for making this resource available to employees." We built it and they came, and it's been really great. So I want to thank you all for your support and your time.
Thank you. Any questions from our commissioner?
I've got one question.
Commissioner Tobin?
Vaping has been in the news a whole bunch, and my own personal opinion is that I think it's every bit as bad as tobacco. Are you seeing any vaping cases, or is there any outreach to the employees about vaping?
Yes, I know the health department is doing a lot on that as well. We ask every patient that comes into the clinic if they are using nicotine or tobacco, nicotine of any sort, so not just smoking cigarettes, but also if they're vaping or if they're chewing tobacco. So we try to address it at the moment. As Sarah mentioned, we have myself, Sarah, and Denise, who are all tobacco treatment specialists. One of the great things now with all being under one roof, if I see somebody for a cold or a cut or something, and it turns out that they are using nicotine, I can counsel them at that moment, and then I can also bring them into the room with Denise to sit down and have a full tobacco treatment visit. which has been amazing because we don't have to wait for someone to schedule. We can just catch them in that moment where they might be thinking about maybe making a change. So I think that's led to a lot more people having success with quitting because they don't have to wait until they come and schedule. We can just start talking to them right away.
And after going to that class, we did, as a nurse, I address my patients differently. I used to say, are you a smoker? Well, not everybody, vaping isn't considered smoking. So we've educated the folks in the clinic to just phrase the question differently. Do you use nicotine of any sorts? Do you vape? Do you chew? So that way we can catch them because vaping has been a huge problem. And we have talked about doing some lunch and learns revolved around tobacco and including that as well. But we've not had to send anybody, I don't think, any cases that are directly related to vaping yet, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
Ladies, incredible information. We have come a long way in 3 years.
Yeah.
Just to see the unbelievable results by putting this wellness center in and just being proactive and our claims reduction and being able to pay off a huge debt that we had in that program 4 or 5 years ago is just incredible. And this is, I commend the board for us taking the steps to do this. And these results are just incredible. And I'm just thankful that our employees have really bought into this tremendously. And the results we're receiving are phenomenal. And thank you all for what you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting us do it. We have a good time.
Yeah, thank you for enabling us to do it.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, you have anything else?
No, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chairman, that brings us to item 3 on the agenda, and Melody Wilkins is here to make the presentation for the Albemarle Commission.
Melanie, thank you so much for being here. We look
Thank
forward
you,
to hearing you.
Thank you. Chairman Woodard, county commissioners, county staff, thank you all for having me, especially on such short notice. I'm here primarily today just to give a brief overview of what the Albemarle Commission is, what our services are, and also to ask, is there anything that we can do for you as one of our member governments? So I'm just going to go through a slideshow, and feel free to stop me if you have any questions and just kind of give you a history and overview. And I've also give you a handout for some services that are specific just to Dare County, because some of these numbers I'm going to be talking about spread our 10-county region. But your numbers are exactly what we're doing for Dare County. So, thank you very much. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to say is that the Albemarle Commission was founded in 1969 by the General Assembly. Our goal, our mission is to improve member government's ability to enhance the quality of lives in your county. Our objective is, thank you so much, designed for the purpose of providing continuous program of comprehensive assistance to the region. And when I say region, I'll show you in a few minutes the 10-county region that we serve, certainly including Dare. We also promote intergovernmental cooperation, establishing a framework for federal, state, and local efforts in a program of regional development. We're also known as a Regional Planning Commission. We have actually many names, but Albemarle Commission is primarily what we go by. We represent 10 counties in northeastern North Carolina. Here's a map of the counties that we serve, and there are 10 of them. And it's one of the largest regions land-wise and the number of counties for a council of government in the state of North Carolina. There are 16 council of governments, but we service Camden County, Chowan, Currituck, Dare, Gates, Hyde, Perquimans, Pasquotank, Terrell, and Washington counties. And to talk a little bit about our board composition, our board consists of 15 total board members. There are 10 total commissioner delegates that are appointed by each of the member governments governing board, and they stay on the board until resignation or replaced by the chairperson, or they are no longer an elected official of the governing board. We also have 4 at-large members, which rotate off the board every 2 years, and we have 1 immediate past chair serving as ex officio, a non-voting member, unless they can be appointed as a commissioner delegate or an at-large delegate. we especially want to thank Commissioner Rob Ross, who serves as our vice chair of our board, and also Howard Swain, who's serving at large. They both do a tremendous job for the commission. We appreciate it. I can see from driving over here that that's no small feat to drive an hour, 20, 25 minutes. So we really appreciate that. So, yeah, it's a haul. Our Board of Delegates meets on the third Thursday of each month at the Hertford Albemarle Commission Building on Church Street. And the only exception being this November meeting, we're going to be meeting at the Upper Women's Rec Center. That's very unusual, but we're going to have our holiday celebration immediately after that. Otherwise, it's always at our office. Okay. Next up, this is just the organizational chart. I won't go over it with you, but if you need anyone in our office, starting with me, you feel free to contact us. We'll be able to, hopefully whatever you need, help you with that. And if we can't, we'll get the answers to it. But these are our contact persons. These are our program directors, which I'll mention as I briefly review their programs and what they go over. They have a great deal of institutional knowledge. Most of our program directors have been there 15, 16 years, and that's a huge help. So to kind of tell you a little bit about what we do, I'll just go through that. Some of our programs, one of the first things we do is, let's see, there we go, administrative services, and that's kind of a catch-all phrase for something that doesn't fall into the other programs that the commission does and offers. We consider ourselves to be the convener for the region to share challenges, opportunities, and solutions. One of the ways we do that is the county chair and county commissioner. The county chair and the county manager quarterly meeting has been very valuable. That's being held now on the second Tuesday of each month in Hertford at the Perquimans Library. One of the things we do there is set the local agenda, set the priorities for the region, develop strategy, have guest speakers. So we appreciate it. I know you guys came out last month and very happy for that. And one of the changes is it's no longer the first Tuesday, it's going to be the second Tuesday because one member county could never meet that meeting. Also, we consider ourselves to be a retreat facilitation. If the retreat is to the extent that our building won't hold it, we will secure other locations if you have some strategic planning or something else that you want to do. We hold educational seminars, planning, local government, economic, HR, trends of any kind. We develop regional legislative agendas. And right now, what we're working on right now is getting the state of North Carolina's broadband infrastructure department to come to the commission, or if there's enough people, we'll move it out of the commission if we need more space. But broadband is a huge issue for a lot of our rural counties, and get out of town and they don't have the internet or the use of the cell phones like everybody else has. So that's the next thing we're going to be doing. So we'll send you something out on that as well. Okay. The next thing we do is economic development. That pretty much falls under my responsibilities. We manage several grants, like the Essential Single Family Home Grant for home repairs for families who are at 80% or less of area median income. We're doing that right now for 5 counties, and the 2020 Notice of Funding Availability is covering Perquimans, Chowan, and Washington, so we're working with them now to get their applications in for that by December 12th. Some counties like to do those grants themselves, and other grants, especially when they're of a regional nature, like for the commission to do it. So we're willing to either help with technical assistance or do it ourselves, either way. In some cases, when you have 3 counties like that, it's just simpler for us to do it and take care of all the paperwork. We also have the EDA planning grant, Economic Development Administration, $70,000 a year from them to work on some of the things that I'm mentioning, technical assistance on grants and applications and convening meetings and so forth. We have a Clean Water Management Trust Fund grant, basically, that is used to combat the blue-green algae problem that's covering about 3 of our counties in the rivers, and it is an economic development issue because, we have some nice homes that are on land next to water that has blue-green algae and that type of thing, and it's affecting the towns that have water so close by. And we recently have just launched a Safe Routes to School grant. We're in the middle of issuing an RFP for that to secure a subcontractee for that, but that's going to cover all 10 counties, so we're very excited about that. That's a brand new grant. So we work closely with all the governments in the region and assist grant applicants. And we also develop and implement the comprehensive regional economic development strategy, that's the CREDS. And that's a 5-year plan. So we're reviewing that right now because we have annual reports and so forth. And that's one thing I'd like to contact your office maybe at the first of the week and find out who here I can talk to in economic development or planning that might could just give me an update on what their county's doing and if there's anything that we can help. Things that we can report to the EDA, things that are going well, or things that aren't, we need some assistance on. So the Rural Planning Organization, that is led by Angela Welsh. That she also is in charge of a region that represents 10 counties and 15 towns. It's the largest in terms of the number of counties and the largest area landmass. What RPO, as we call it, does is develop multi-module transportation plans, prioritize transportation projects, provide a forum for public participation, and provide transportation-related information to local governments. So that's a very important role. It's basically funded by the Department of Transportation. And the next up, we have the Northeastern Workforce Development Board. They manage 3 certified NC Works Career Centers, including the one here in Dare County, and also 9 other outpost sites. They're involved in youth programs such as on-the-job training, real-world experience, youth summits, paid work experience, and they also fund cases of education. They assist adult dislocated workers with education and job placement, coordinate the certified work ready, and operate the business services support. That department is headed by David Whitmere, who has about 15 years at the commission as well. They do a great job. Just to kind of give you some numbers on the workforce development, 600 served in the 10-county region in 1 year in the youth program services, including tutoring, adult dislocated worker services, 224 served, business services, 770. Total on workforce services provided to 64,093 services for the 10-county region. Kind of moving on to area aging and nutrition, that used to be 2 separate divisions. It's been combined, but they also provide senior games, evidence-based health programs, family caregiver programs, and regional ombudsman. Laura Alvarico, you see on the chart, is in charge of that. Laura also has, okay.
We're still on the, you didn't advance that slide for us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
There I am. Okay, forgot all about
There's
it.
Laura. Yep.
Okay, so area agent on agency, yeah. So they provide medical transportation, general transportation, adult daycare. Get more over. Yes, okay. Have an ombudsman program, senior games, family caregiver. They also serve 5 meals a week, except for holidays and the weeks between Christmas and New Year. They have shelf-ready meals that are provided at times, as well as during inclement weather, and that includes hurricanes whenever possible. So for the 10-county regions, they served in 1 year, close to 41,000 meals, spanning with 705 recipients. So that is what they do. And that's Laura Alvarico again, and she runs a really great shop. She's been there for a long time. So do you have any questions about what we do? Or
I had 1 or 2.
You do? Okay.
Sounds like a quiz.
No. I just wanted to ask that maybe you let everyone know about the recent program that we decided to exit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I had it on the list and then I skipped it. The Albemarle Commission had administered what was called a revolving loan fund grant, and it had been in action since 1994, and actually in part thanks to Rob Ross looking at things from a very business perspective, because it really appears to be a great program. It assists new businesses and helps other businesses grow, but when you look at the time that it takes for staff and the reporting and the administrative burden, and Commissioner Ross pointed out the fact that we were averaging 1 loan every other year, and they were generally $30,000 and $50,000. And then in addition to that, we had multiple loans that went belly up. And when that happens, it starts eating into the commission's money directly. So while it looked good, some of the problems is we don't have the expertise within the commission to make loans and collect loans and write off loans, and the attorney's fees were just never ending. It was just, constantly bleeding money out of the things. There have been other council of governments that I've talked to that, expressed that the revolving loan fund, it's just about caused them to go under. So because of those reasons, because of the lack of staff and because of the lack of success in that program, we have decided, with the board's approval, of course, to end the revolving loan fund. For all intents and purposes, it is over because it's a federal program and it takes some time. We were just talking to them today. It's up at their attorney's office and they're working out the details. But essentially what it's going to mean for us is that they had about $300,000 in capital base. We're going to be returning that money to them. We're also going to keep the 3 active loans that are on time, and we'll keep that money, which is going to be roughly $100,000. So we didn't lose any money. The only way we'll lose money is a couple of those loans are continuing to take legal fees, the ones that didn't go well, and so that'll be a loss for us. So there were a lot of reasons to wrap it up. There's also a lot of other vehicles that can take care of small business loans besides the commission when we just don't have the expertise or time for it.
Thanks,
So
Bonnie.
it's basically over.
And
So-
she's done an outstanding job dealing with the other government agencies that we've had to negotiate the exit. So not an easy task, but well
Thank
done, for sure.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No, thank you so much, Melanie, for being here this evening, sharing this with us. We really appreciate you doing this. We know it was a little dry for you as well, so thank you again. Appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item 4 on the agenda. This is a public hearing pursuant to NCGS 105-317 to receive public comments regarding the proposed schedule, standards, rules for real property appraisals to be used in the 2020 countywide property revaluation that will be effective January 1st, 2020. If you're here to speak on that issue tonight and that issue only, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. The green light will come on when your time begins. The yellow light will come on when you have about a minute left, and the red light will come on when your time is up. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to that issue? I see no one here. Is there anyone in Buxton that would like to speak to that issue?
No comment from Buxton.
With that, Mr. Chairman, we would close this public hearing. There's no action required by you. All we're required to do is have that public hearing, and so we've had it unless you have questions. Posey and Greta are here to answer those questions, but otherwise we can move to the next agenda item.
Any questions by the board? Hearing none. County Manager?
Thank you all. That brings us to item 5 on the agenda, which is public comment. Again, this is the time that the board set aside for public comment. If you have public comment this evening, the same rules that I just described would apply to this as well. Here and there, I have Penny Adams signed up. Penny?
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Adams.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for having me. I'm Penny Adams. I am the president of the Dare County Association of Educators, which is our local association of the North Carolina Association of Educators. And I stand before you representing our DCAE members that are in every school across Dare County. I'm also here to follow up on a letter that I sent to you all in email. My 89-year-old mother would insist that I not do a letter to anyone without them knowing who I am. So here I am. This is who I am. I am a music teacher at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. I'm currently on year 29 as a teacher, all here in Dare County. I have been a member of DCAE since 1991 when I started teaching in what was then the brand new First Flight Elementary School. I've seen a lot of changes since then. Our schools have grown, the tourism economy has grown, the cost of housing has grown, but since 2008 especially, our salaries and our local supplement have not grown to keep up with the high cost of living here. And that brings me here. We respectfully are asking for you to continue your support of Dare County schools and teachers. Thank you for having such a great relationship with the Board of Education. It is noted and it is appreciated. But we'd like to ask you to help fund our local teacher supplement as an increase as soon as possible. Strong students, strong teachers, strong communities. That's the motto of NCAE. And when teachers are working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet, our ability to be strong is made even harder. When teachers leave our community to move to a more affordable area, when teachers can't take a job here because they can't afford to live here, it's all making our communities not as strong as they could be. Our Dare County Board of Education is working hard to recruit and retain the very best educators, to build strong students in those strong schools that build the strong communities. And we appreciate all of their hard work, just as we appreciate all of your hard work and your willingness to work with the Board of Education. Our schools, our students, our teachers, everybody. The local teacher supplement that we currently have is greatly appreciated. I do not want to seem ungrateful. The financial assistance is greatly, that you budgeted for us, is appreciated. While comparing local supplements across the state, we compare well to our less economically robust neighbors. But for counties with comparable economic base and comparable cost of living, we're not comparing well. Also, as many of you may or may not know, and now this is not a you thing, this is a how we're paid thing, our current supplement money is being heavily taxed because it's presented as bonus money, making our net take home a little more than half of the supplement that we're getting. Again, that's just making you aware of that. I don't think that's a you problem. Excuse me. I wish I could fix all of that is wrong in Raleigh. That's preventing reasonable salary increases for all teachers and educational support personnel as well. My magic wand seems to be broken. I wish someone had one. But as of today, you know, we don't have a state budget. We don't have a cost of living increase. We are all funded at last year's level. I can only come to you, take a deep breath, represent my fellow teachers by asking you to help us by helping to fund a Dare County teacher supplement increase as soon as possible. I am happy to meet with anyone. I'm happy to return to you with facts, figures, and comparisons from DPI of local teacher supplements across the state. In private, in group, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to share any information I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in Dare? Any public comment from Buxton?
No comment from Buxton.
With that, Mr. Chairman, we close the public comment and we move to item 6. And Nancy Griffin is here to present.
Hang on there, County Manager. I just saw someone lurking behind our associate at the Fessenden Center. He looks suspicious. Do we have security down there, Sheriff?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. We'll keep going.
He's the only guy in the room wearing a tie.
Yeah, Danny Couch, of course, is who I'm referring to, and Commissioner Couch couldn't join us because of the road closures and all. So, Danny, thanks for being there, buddy.
Hey, Danny.
All right. Again, we're now at item 6 on the agenda, and Nancy Griffin is here to present a resolution in support of building community resilience in Dare County. Hey, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Nancy, welcome this evening.
Good evening to all of you. My name is Nancy Griffin, and I serve as Executive Director of Children and Youth Partnership for Dare County. Roxana Ballinger from the Department of Health and Human Services was going to be here with me co-presenting, and she is unable to be here this evening due to illness. She and I, along with several other citizens, serve on Be Resilient OBX, which I think of as a collaborative of collaboratives. It's a group of people who are joining together to build a community resiliency model that will have a collective impact on many health and well-being issues here in Dare County. Children and Youth Partnership serves as the backbone organization of this collective impact model of Be Resilient OBX. Our collaborative partners also include the Breaking Through Task Force of Healthy Carolinians of the Outer Banks, the Dare County Community Collaborative for Child and Adult Mental Health, the Dare County Department of Health and Human Services, Dare County Schools, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council for Dare County, the Saving Lives Task Force, the School Health Advisory Council, and the YMCA of the Outer Banks. Each of those collaboratives have many members from many other organizations that are part of those groups. We are excited that North Carolina educators, healthcare providers, juvenile justice professionals, and social workers, along with many state agencies, have joined forces in partnership with UNC-TV and the production company KPJR Films to recognize this week, November 18th through 22nd, as Resilience Week in North Carolina. This is a statewide initiative to build awareness of childhood trauma, prevention, and resilience. As part of Resilience Week, UNC-TV will present the statewide broadcast premiere of the special award-winning documentary feature Resilience, which is about the biology of stress and the science of hope. That broadcast will take place tomorrow evening on all public television stations at 8 o'clock. The hour-long film focuses on adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, what has been called the greatest public health discovery, the most important public health movement of our time because it impacts the health of so many across the lifespan, affecting not only their healthy development, but their learning, their behavior, many diseases, the whole trajectory of their health. The film delves deep into the science behind ACEs and the havoc that this syndrome can wreak on the brains and bodies of children, putting them at greater risk of disease, a greater risk for homelessness, for depression and anxiety, for substance use disorders, and other lifelong impacts of health, learning, and behavior. The film also examines how the toxic stress produced by ACEs creates long-term impacts on our communities as a whole, not only on individuals, but on their family systems, the organization systems they are a part of, the whole community. But that's not the end of the story. Research is providing evidence that children's positive experiences and relationships with caring adults are vital to forming a strong foundation for their healthy development and provide a powerful antidote to the effects of ACEs and toxic stress. As several of us heard when we attended the Southeastern ACEs Summit a couple of weeks ago in Asheville, we are the medicine, each one here, each one in our communities. As we invest upstream in programs, strategies, and policies that build supportive communities and strengthen families, we work to build safe, stable, nurturing environments that indeed have a lasting impact. And I have to say, it thrills me so much to see at the top of your board agenda each time that all the decisions that you make, you take into consideration ultimately their impact on children and families. I just also want to tell you that locally this week, tomorrow we are finishing up a series of training for a group of Dare County Schools educators in community resiliency model skills. Over the last year, we have provided this intensive training to 75 school administrators, counselors, school nurses, school resource officers, psychologists, and social workers, as well as to teachers of students with special needs, all as part of a school safety grant that we obtained. Also on Wednesday of this week, we are presenting this documentary, Resilience, to this year's OBX Leadership Cohort that is sponsored by the Outer Banks Chamber of Commerce. Viewing the film provides an opportunity for more North Carolinians to learn about and engage in becoming connections to build resilience in children. We encourage all adults to tune in to this statewide broadcast of resilience and to consider ways that they can become the caring connection for children. If any group would like to arrange for a private showing of the documentary and a facilitated discussion about how to build ACEs awareness and healthy, trauma-informed, and resilient communities here in Dare County, they can contact Children and Youth Partnership, and we will be glad to arrange that. And now we respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider adopting a resolution recognizing Resilience Week in Dare County and supporting the ongoing work of building resilience here in our local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. County Manager, would you read that resolution, please?
Sure. This is a resolution supporting building community resilience in Dare County. Whereas adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments, also known as the pair of ACEs, impacts the overall quality of life and economic development of an entire community, affecting all races, genders, and education and income levels. Whereas more than 60% of the U.S. adult population report at least one ACE and nearly 25% experience 3 or more before the age of 18. And whereas the more ACEs children experience, the more likely they are to suffer learning and health problems resulting from toxic stress. And whereas the ability to not only survive but to thrive in the face of adversity is built on resilience, which is critical to health and well-being. And whereas building community resilience is about creating and strengthening a network of buffers and supports that help children, families, and whole communities to bounce forward in the face of adversity. And whereas systems, organizations, and communities can prevent and counteract lasting harm by becoming trauma-informed, reducing family sources of stress, providing children and adults with positive, responsive relationships, and strengthening the core life skills we all need to adapt and thrive. Therefore, be it resolved that the Dare County Board of Commissioners recognizes November 18th through November 24th as Resilience Week in Dare County and supports the ongoing collaborative efforts of Being Resilient OBX to raise awareness about, build capacity to intervene in, and support recovery from the impact of ACEs and toxic stress. This is the 18th day of November 2019.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
Motion on the floor by the Vice Chairman to approve, seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to mention a couple of things. Nancy mentioned that she's director of the Children and Youth Partnership. She's also a very vital member of the Saving Lives Task Force and was the very first person that I heard of that mentioned ACEs and the effects that ACEs have on the lives and the importance of resilience in overcoming ACEs. Nancy also oversees, as part of the Children and Youth Partnership, a Triple P program, which is a positive parenting program, Smart Start, which is intended to get kids started off in the right path on schoolwork, and Explore to Learn Playgroup for very young children, which is a reading program basically, early literacy programs, again, the importance of reading, and Kids Fest, which is done yearly, that kids can come and enjoy themselves, and there's just a lot of things to do there. So she is quite busy. She is involved in a lot of things for the youth of this county, and Nancy, thank you for all of your efforts. It's a shame that Roxana couldn't be here tonight. She is suffering from the flu, and I spoke with her today, and she don't even sound like herself. She had to beg off, but she is co-chair of the Saving Lives Task Force, and also an integral part of that, and I want to thank her for that. Nancy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any further comments? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Nancy. County Manager?
Item 8 on the agenda is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, you have the approval of the minutes from November 4th. You have an MOU between the U.S. Coast Guard sector and Dare County. You have the tax collector's report. And you have the Health and Human Services budget amendment.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
A motion on the floor by Commissioner House to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, that'd be your agenda.
Thank you, County Manager. That brings us to item 9, Commissioner's Business. And I would like to ask Commissioner Ross, would you kick that off for us this evening?
I would be happy to, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a list of items I just wanted to quickly run down, a bit of a laundry list, if you were, but activities have been abounding, if you will, in the county. Today, first off, we had an audit committee meeting right before this session began, and Sally DeFosse was there, reporting on behalf of the finance organization. And Commissioner Irvin Bateman and I went through that agenda and found an extremely strong audit report. Effectively, in government circles, it is an unqualified opinion, which is a full and complete bill of health for our financial affairs, conduct, separation of duties, all things that give an auditor full confidence in the integrity of our financial statements and mechanisms and reporting. So thank you to Sally, thank you to Dave Clausen, thank you to Ernie DeBuro and our whole finance team for an excellent result. Recently, I attended an aging conference. You heard from Melody Wilkins today about the Area Agency on Aging, and they held a conference symposium in Edenton. And I traveled with Sandy Pace and 6 of our seniors from the Dare County Center, which was indeed an interesting experience. Miss Annie was there, Miss Franny, as well as a number of other representatives of Dare County. And it was about a 4 or 5 hour meeting with lunch representing recommendations, lifestyle, home and environment improvements for elderly, nutrition counseling, and I found it just to be a terrific conference in many respects. I continue and will re-emphasize my comment of how impressed I was with the Wellness Center and the statistics we heard from Mario and was it Sarah Kirshner? Yeah, Sarah. That was just amazing stuff. Being able to combat some of the most threatening health and lifestyle illnesses for folks as they progress through stages of diabetes and hypertension. It's just amazing to me. It's just such a terrific improvement for the lives of everybody that they touch. So I'm really pleased with that. The Albemarle Commission, and Melody may have mentioned, will be meeting on Thursday of this week with their annual holiday dinner and short meeting. And I will just reinforce, as I've told you all before, Ms. Wilkins is doing a stellar job as our new executive director and enjoys a very high confidence from the board. We went through her recent performance appraisal, and my opinion is shared by others on the board. She's doing a fine job. On the 28th, Wally, Commissioner Overman, and I are part of the Trillium Board. We'll have its monthly meeting November 28th. That's this month. Earlier in the month, I had the privilege, and the veterans are gone, I'm sorry to see. There was a country and western music conference at Secret Island with Ray Scott and Keith Anderson that I was able to attend, and Kelly Harmon was there and did some introductions behind the scenes backstage. I volunteered to do some vocals with Ray Scott. He declined, and therefore it was a complete success, and I didn't damage his performance. It was a terrific conference, concert, well attended, and for a terrific cause with our veterans. On the 9th, the North Carolina Aquarium Foundation hosted a sort of introduction / appreciation / let us educate you who the Aquarium Society and Foundation is and how our North Carolina system of aquariums works. And my wife and I attended that, and that was a terrific event, really good to see. We have a capital committee meeting coming up on the 20th. Told you there's a long list of activities here. And we will be going through our capital planning and capital spending forecasts at that meeting. Pleased to report that the group that does the annual motorcycle tour run, that is the Dare County Center, has a program every year for kids of different age groups where nobody goes home empty-handed. And Terry Gray and his motorcycle guys have raised, again, $16,000 donated toward that. So we're really pleased. Also, the College of the Albemarle recently held a film screening, sort of the first-time screening for a documentary on a local artist of really, really outstanding reputation and notoriety, Mr. Glenn Ure, who is obviously no longer with us, but did the Stations of the Cross at Holy Redeemer Catholic Church in Kitty Hawk, and I attended that the other evening, and it was absolutely simply outstanding. And that was, of course, right before the first annual dinner for the EMTs, law enforcement, and firefighters that you referenced in your opening remarks. Take a breath. And lastly, we have a tourism board task force that will be working on devising a strategic plan and objective for the new event site property. I'm honored to be able to sit on that board with Lee Nettles and others, and I will, of course, bring back and report to this board as our first meeting is coming up December 3rd, and I'll keep you apprised. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it. Commissioner Tobey.
Well, Rob, you've been busy.
I have been.
I've been relatively busy too. I was invited to go down to Houston to do a tour of the Merton with the naval architects that are designing the new dredge, and also with EJE Dredging. We went down last week, and it was a very nice gathering of the Corps personnel, and they were very open with their answers, and it really went really well. We had a 3-hour, very comprehensive question and answer period about all the specific systems on the boat and the likes and the dislikes, the efficiencies and the inefficiencies. It really went well, and Melissa, who's the head engineer on the project, has kind of done a summary of the questions and the answers and what the changes would be made. So it was really well worth it and a really good trip. Then we had the task force meeting last Tuesday, and at the task force meeting, we had a representative from NOAA. And it was very interesting, his presentation. NOAA is on the verge of starting a new way of doing their navigational charts. It's all going to be digital, and they are no longer going to print paper charts. There's a lot of people in some of the cruising community that are upset with that, and there's a lot of people that think it's great. So the one thing that's really good about it is the efficiency. It can be changed rapidly. Yeah. They'll be able to change bottom readings within a month or two. And this would be, nation, or really worldwide. So instead of having a printed paper chart that takes years to do, in my opinion, it's a good thing. With that said, in their presentation, he showed a digital chart of Oregon Inlet. And what they're using is they're using the automated identification systems from the boats that are going through these areas. And interestingly enough, almost all of the traffic goes through the crack, which is not a proper channel. So in our discussion with him, we talked about what is necessary to make that part of the system. And he said it doesn't have to be a federal channel to be in the system, but it does have to be marked. So Bobby got a list of things that we need to do. We need to try to get a survey done of it, either by NCDOT or NOAA. I mean, not NOAA, the Corps of Engineers. Then we have to make a request to NOAA to have it included. We have to mark the channel somehow, which the Coast Guard said they could probably do. And we might get it done. It's interesting. It's a good system. The next thing is EJE received the 95% complete dredge plan, engineered plan. So we're very, 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 very close to putting it out an RFP to the builders. I would say within a month, because we're gonna have to take those changes that we got at our meeting in Houston, apply them in it, in an engineered fashion to the ship, but it's getting close. And lastly, on a very sad note, one of our past county employees, who was the director for Extension Service, Susan Ruiz Evans, lost her husband very unexpectedly this past week. And Susan was very close to me, and I just learned about it yesterday, actually. And our prayers and thoughts to Susan, and hope she can get through this in a positive way.
Thank you, Commissioner. Danny, are you there? Danny? Have we lost them, our connection?
Sorry. That I am. I'm here, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. I caught you off guard, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just want to say how nice it is to be standing here and seeing with this high definition television we've got here. I can see Wally messing with his glasses. I can hear Rob pouring coffee. I can see Jim over there pouring a little bit of water. So be careful what you say going forward. Very, very nice setup here. Let's see, been very busy, as all of you have. County manager and myself, we were in the Wilmington area this past week, representing the Outer Banks, Dare County, and of course the 20 other coastal counties all had representation there. Manager Outen gave an impromptu presentation on the dredge, which was well received, attracted a little bit of an audience after he was done. It's been good public relations for us. We've got a lot of eyes on us with that. Saw a great presentation from Whit Tuttle, who is the ED of Executive Director of Visit on the hurricanes and heavy weather impacts on tourism. And fortunately, the big takeaway here is because North Carolina has such outstanding beaches, along with North Carolina hospitality, that hurricanes, when all is said and done, actually have a minimal impact with Hurricane Florence and, of course, Matthew and Dorian there notwithstanding. That was a lot of damage. But our visitors are extremely loyal here in North Carolina, not only the Outer Banks, but also the Crystal Coast and Cape Fear Coast down there. Also at the North Carolina Byway, that's the North Carolina Beach and Inlet Waterways Association. A lot of engineering in there, a lot of coastal scientists, a lot of local government representation there. Quite a brotherhood and sisterhood of good North Carolinians. But we had a stellar presentation by our guys, Coastal Science Engineering, on the Nags Head Beach Nourishment Project, which is nothing short of an engineering marvel in terms of coastal science. It provides great benefits, as we know, to our overall economy, but also is providing public relations on a national scale. Our projects here are being noticed nationwide. Coming up in December, hope you're going to look forward, as I am, to dredge management presentation plan coming up, hopefully sooner than later, before the end of the year. One of the things I was really glad to hear is that the coastal counties and the state in general is looking at dredge spoil, not as spoil, but as a resource. These dredge projects that are being done, whether it's hopper, whether it's pipeline, whether it's sidecaster, these are becoming valuable resources for setting up things along the line of submerged aquatic vegetation. We can all work together. We're going to need some bird habitat, as you know, from the Waterways Commission meetings. Core June is maxed out. Dredge Island was blown out, but we've got some ideas about moving forward with that, really going to be looking forward to hearing what Ken Wilson has to say. And along with Rob and Jim and everybody, I also want to give a shout out to the Wellness Center. They've helped me, if I could have a moment of personal privilege here, immensely, trying to get a grip on my own health. And Marielle, Denise there, Dr. Bowen, Sarah, everybody, the two fine people that gave the presentation here, they are extremely accommodating, extremely willing to listen. It's quite a credit to this county. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, you and I had a long conversation today. The flooding we're experiencing has become, down the banks here, it's become the new normal. And it's something we're going to have to deal with. We in Dare County, we're a resilient bunch. We're fully capable of dealing with what Mother Nature is handing us here going forward. And I look forward to communicating these challenges of this new normal, if you will, with our partners at, of course, Department of Transportation, the Ferry Division, our own emergency management, our own EMS and sheriff's departments. And I think there's great things in store for Dare County as we continue to deal with what we're experiencing here with flooding and resilience. And it's good to see you. We've got a good setup down here. It's just Denise and I in here. But as you've seen some of the past presentations, they've been well attended. And this is a first-class facility we got down here. I'm impressed. Matter of fact, I'd like to stay down here and go to the meetings here if you don't mind.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good to see you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Denied.
Thank you for
Yes,
your
sir.
comment. Commissioner Bateman.
Yes, sir. Just want to thank everyone within the county, the sheriff's department, the EMS that helped out with the marathon. It was pretty successful. I haven't had the numbers yet, but I believe we had quite a few runners down here. We had some good economic development. Everybody ate out and had a good time, hopefully, and everybody was safe. I will tell you this, they can run faster than I can. That guy came across, he was hauling it. I was fortunate to be a marshal in Kitty Hawk at the start at mile 1 and mile 4, and then ended up at mile 21 at Sugar Creek as a water stop. And so I got to see them when they started off and when they came by. They didn't look any different. They just hauled like 5-minute miles, just clicking it, buddy.
Wow.
So I was happy for them. I also attended the first responder and educators dinner at Captain George's with Commissioner Ross and also with Chairman Woodard. And that was a good time there. And the Glen Ure, I'm not Catholic, and I've never been in the Catholic church, but in the foyer one time I bought some goods for a fundraiser one time. But this artist, Glen Ure, which everybody knows Glenn, he did such an outstanding job on carving these pieces they're up above, probably 12 foot up in the air, out of wood. And it just took him 150 hours per unit to do it at least. And his wife gave a little talk during the film that they had, about 30 minutes long, and showed some of the trials and tribulations he went through in doing that. And it was very touching. And I have gained I had respect for the guy before, but I really gained a whole bunch more after I saw the film and saw the work that he did. Great guy, great community guy. Trey, whether y'all know, he's from Kitty Hawk, and he was a Kitty Hawk officer for quite a while. And so I'm really proud of him, and I know the sheriff's really proud of him. Outstanding job he did when saving that young individual. We had recovery court now. We have 15 participants in recovery court, and it's proceeding very well. I mean, I'm really happy with the lives that we're touching. It's got some kinks in it, but the judge is working very, very hard. The team is working very, very hard behind the scenes. Everybody has the main goal in mind is to help these individuals get back into society and live very productive lives. And I think that's what the goal of the court has always been, so that's great. And I did want to mention, I saw where we lost one of your officers I was at recovery court walking out and he was working the desk and sat and joked around with him a little bit. And I was so sorry. He was always so nice and so pleasant. Just a sweet guy, Mr. Ferguson, I believe. So sorry to see his passing.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Good stuff. Good, that recovery court. Commissioner, Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also like to pass along congratulations to Trey and for the well-deserved awards that he received. And just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Commissioner House?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank Trey. I mean, he's been outstanding. I've known him since he was back in Kitty Hawk, and he's just an outstanding guy. And praises to him. I would not have expected anything less of him and what he did that day. That also goes along to, also we lost a very dear person in our sheriff's office this past week. Also a very good friend of mine. His condolences to the family and also to the sheriff's office. He is one officer I do not think we could ever replace, and that was Philip Ferguson. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. I was able to attend the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council meeting, and earlier this year, I believe I brought it to the board that the state wanted to expand that program a little bit. Usually the children that were in those programs aged out at 16, and there was a gap between the 16 and 18. And the state decided, well, let's just expand it and carry it out to their 18. One of the big things we had a question about was, how can we fund that? How can we finance that additional growth? Well, the state stepped up, and Dare County has received $17,000 for that additional time to help with counseling, teen court, and things of that nature as well. So I wanted to put that out as good news for our youth here that are seeking some type of help and some counseling. Our marine fisheries has been very busy, to say the least. One is they are proposing Amendment 3 to the blue crab fishery. I think I reported to you back some time ago that they are reporting that the blue crab is 98% overfished, and that also one of the main things was the, and this is coming down more from the federal than from them, is the endangerment of the terrapin turtles that are getting caught in our crab pots. So the Amendment 3 goes into certain other restrictions, like expanding some of the sanctuary zones that are already out there, and other things of that nature as well, and also cutting back some of the blue crab fishery. One case in point, they're pretty much putting it out as that it's going to be kind of uneven. The southern part of the state can actually crab longer than the northern part of the state, which is kind of, I don't feel is great. But that's one of the things that was just brought up and hasn't really clarified in what their jurisdiction is for, and what they want to do with that. So I wanted to focus on exactly what the Third Amendment was when it was introduced. And so one of the things is there's a turtle excruder, 3 holes in a crab pot now that they put in 2017 that are 2 5/16 inches, and they have to have 3 of them in each pot. Amendment 3 wants to increase that size limit to well over 3 inches. That puts a very big burden on our crabbers who have just gone through less than 2 years of putting these extruders in their pots. If this goes through, now they've got to take either those pots and either modify them or buy new pots, which is another financial burden on our fishermen. And with this past week, we had a Dare County Commission for Working Watermen's meeting, And they have proposed to put this resolution to us, and hopefully we can get it approved and sent out to the proper channels. County Manager, can you read that resolution for us?
Yes, sir. This is a resolution opposing the Blue Crab Fishery Management Plan Amendment 3. Whereas the Blue Crab Fishery Management Plan Amendment 3 was entered into action by the NC Division of Marine Fisheries based on the stock assessment ending in 2017. And whereas the NC Marine Fisheries Commission adopted measures in 2016 to manage the fisheries, these adopted measures were not in place by the time the stock assessment of 2017 was conducted. Whereas fish houses and commercial crabbers across coastal communities of North Carolina are seeing record numbers of landings in 2019. And whereas consistently changing a fishery plan every few years has proven to be ineffective without the proper and accurate assessment of how these changes impact the fisheries. And whereas on January 15th, 2017, crab pots were mandated to have 3 escape holes measuring 2 5/16 inches. Placing more escape holes or increasing the size without proper assessment of this measure would place an undue financial burden on our watermen to either purchase new gear or to modify existing gear. And whereas the Shellfish Crustacean Advisory Committee advised the NC Marine Fisheries Commission and voted to table the measure to add the 2019 date on the stock assessment in order to determine the effects of the 2016 management measures. Therefore, be it resolved, the Dare County Board of Commissioners is opposed to adopting the Blue Crab Fishery Management Plan Amendment 13 in its current state. The board recommends tabling the plan until the 2019 stock assessment date is completed and with the consideration of habitat conditions as part of the management plan, adopted this the 18th day of November 2019.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
It's a motion by Commissioner House to approve the resolution opposing Blue Crab Fishery Management Plan Amendment 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobin. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to take one moment and make sure I'm understanding it, because I think I do. What we're saying in this resolution is the Marine Fisheries Commission should stop or hold on Amendment 3 until such time as 2019 actual data can be assessed and a determination made as to the effectiveness of the measures implemented in 2016, previously not reflected in the 2017 data upon which this Amendment 3 is being based.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
Before you do, I got to ask Steve a question.
Sure.
So has anybody given any consideration to, instead of doing the back door this way? Because, you know, we cull crabs. We cull crabs when we get them in the boat.
Oh, yeah.
So they're getting called twice. So I kind of disagree with the cull rings and changing the size of that. Does it make sense, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Has anybody also thought that maybe we need to maybe limit taking buster crabs in January and in December when they're coming in the inlet, when they're loaded with darn sacks of eggs, because the eggs make babies, you understand?
Right. Well, one of the things that was brought up in the Marine Fisheries Commission meeting this past week was they were actually looking at closing the fishery in January, for the month of January.
Yeah, but busters, they start the 1st of December. They're going to go to Hatteras now, and all the crabs are going to come to the inlet, and they're loaded with eggs. I mean, you're going to take 2 weeks out of working, but still you're going to say, this way you can save your species if you tell me to saving something. And not that many crabbers go down there. That's just one thing.
Right.
The other thing is maybe regulating the soft crab, the small baby soft crabs. When you're getting a peeler like this, there's no sense in taking that $4 peeler and sending it to New York City to serve on a thing with a martini for $45. He belongs to be able to stay in the water. Maybe regulate stuff like that and use some common sense of regulation, not do stuff like they're doing here, which makes no sense at all.
Right. No, I agree. And also one of the things is, you know, they're talking about, you know, conservation and cutting back on the catch. If you look at this, at 2016, there was 860 crab licenses issued. In 2018, 656 crab licenses issued. So you've already got a 25% reduction in effort.
So. It's hard to make money at crabbing anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you,
I'm for it.
Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of that of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts. I know you have something else, and we'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
I'll call the Dare County Board of Commissioners meeting back to order and turn it over to Commissioner House.
All right, gentlemen, this was the one area that I've been telling you was something that has come up, and there are so many moving parts in this, it's just unreal. But I'll give you some background. Back in January, the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission wanted to look at delineation lines that would, for jurisdictional waters, of what would constitute as a coastal water to an inland water. So you got together with the North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission to have a joint committee to try to determine the jurisdictional waters, or to relook at the boundaries. The Marine Fisheries Commission, actually a couple of years ago, had already looked at that, of what was already set up as boundary waters, and they were fine with the way it was to start with. This joint commission joint committee had 2 meetings, and it was very evident in both of those meetings that neither side wanted to really come together equally. And as far as defining what is a boundary. And in that discussions, or during those discussions, one of the members brought up that why don't we look at it as a salinity issue? And that was done at their final meeting, and then nothing else, there were no other meetings for the joint committee. Then the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission threw out a rejustification of what the boundaries were, or could be, based on salinity. Number one, I've got one major problem. I have done some pretty extensive research, and I have yet to find any state or any country that has based a boundary of an inland water and a coastal water based on salinity. Mainly because that salinity changes from season to season and weather pattern to weather pattern. So if you take a baseline of when everything's neutral and do the study as that, I could possibly see maybe how that might happen. But when does that happen, especially in our waters here in coastal North Carolina? This would lead to a lot of confusion of, then you'd have 2 different agencies regulating those waters. Where would you define what's a coastal water? Is it under this management? And inland water obviously is managed under somebody else. And also, as we do know, in North Carolina, you cannot commercial fish in inland waters. It has to be coastal waters. So that leads into a whole other program of this, plus also in the fact that it would affect a lot of different agencies, not only in the state, but also as federal as well, as far as like CAMA permitting and things of that nature as well. And also the environmental impacts on inland water versus coastal water, all those regulations change as well. This is one of the other things I wanted to point out is the North Carolina Administrative Procedure Act. This would definitely constitute, if those waters were cut out, of commercial fishing would definitely exceed the 1 million mark for a sustainable economic impact, not only for the fishery in general. So this would actually have to go through Raleigh to get approved. And this is one of the things that could be very detrimental. There are 2 counties in our state right now that have coastal waters, and that once this would go through, if it did go through, those counties would no longer be coastal counties, and in fact would actually change the makeup of the Marine Fisheries Commission, because nobody in those 2 counties would actually be allowed to be appointed to the Marine Fisheries Commission, which also leads to other implications as well down the road. This would, to break it all down, what it really means to close to us here in Dare County is that a good portion of Currituck County would be, Currituck Sound would be designated as inland waters. Portions of the Albemarle Sound would be designated as inland waters. All of Alligator River would be destined as inland waters. And then further south, a lot of the estuaries for the rivers that go into the sound, a lot of those areas would be knocked out too. And I've heard from a few people down in the southern part of the state, the areas that would be knocked out are prime fishing areas for them as well. I brought this also up at the Dare County Commission for Working Watermen, and they too would like to present a resolution against this reclassification of jurisdictional waters. And County Manager, could you read that one, please?
This is a resolution opposing reclassification of jurisdictional waters. Whereas in January of 2019, the NC Marine Fisheries Commission, the MFC, and the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, the WRC, formed a joint committee for the purpose of determining boundaries defining inland and coastal waters. And whereas the Joint Committee had its last meeting in May of 2019 after having disagreements between the agencies on the salinity value to determine boundaries. And whereas in August of 2019, the WRC business meeting was held with little direct notice to the MFC or to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, at this meeting, the WRC decided to move forward with the proposed boundaries based on arbitrary 2.6 parts per trillion per thousand salinity value. And whereas in 2017, the MFC conducted a review of rules pertaining to delineation, which is 15A NCAC 03Q.0200 at SEC, and determined that there was no basis to adjust jurisdictional boundaries. And whereas the proposed reclassification of jurisdictional waters would be a loss of approximately 144,984 square acres or 226.5 square miles of coastal and commercial fishing waters, thus creating even more confusion and regulations to the already overregulated NC commercial fishing industry. And whereas the MCF would be required by law to perform a comprehensive financial analysis to modify jurisdictional boundaries, which would include a review of all existing rules and a detailed mapping effort expected to take over a year to complete, with added cost to the taxpayers of North Carolina. And whereas the financial impact as proposed would exceed $1 million for sustainable economic impact as prescribed in the NC Administrative Procedure Act. And whereas fishery management plans of important commercial and recreational species under MFC authority follow a criterion initially established, coastal and joint waters, but not inland waters. Thus, a complete review of all MFC rules would have to be completed at NC taxpayer expense. Therefore, be it resolved that the Dare County Board of Commissioners strongly opposes the reclassification of jurisdictional waters as prescribed by the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Under such research, we have not found where a salinity value is a determination of boundary lines between coastal and inland waters adopted this the 18th day of November 2009.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Point of order.
Yeah.
On this handout, he read it with square acres on there. In our handout, it does not have square acres on it. I just want to make sure that it is put into the record as square acres.
Yeah.
Okay.
In addition to
Acre is
that,
by definition an area of square, so acre will do it.
On the 6 whereas, that needs to be MFC, not MCF.
Right.
MFC.
On which one? Oh, which one, Wally?
The 6 whereas.
Whereas 6.
Where it says MCF, it should
MCF
say
should be MFC.
Ah, yes, very good.
There's a motion on the floor to opposing this reclassification of jurisdictional waters. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tobin and the Vice Chairman. The floor is open for discussion.
I'd like to mention, Mr. Chairman, that the Coastal Studies Institute and various discussions that I've had with them this year, as a matter of fact, the point made about salinity changes is very appropriate. They measure salinity in particularly, I'm sure they do it everywhere, but I know they do it in Croatan Sound multiple times throughout the year, and particularly, I think, throughout the summer. And those numbers vary widely. I was asking them, last discussion I had about them was I know that they had seeded under the bridge, under the new bridge with some oyster shells, and that some oysters at one time had started to accumulate there. And when I asked the fellow about it, he said, well, they're probably all dead now because the water got so fresh that they couldn't live. So it varies. So using that as a criteria makes, I'll be nice, it just makes no sense. It really doesn't rise to anything sensical whatsoever.
I don't know much about this topic, so I was just curious, what is the criterion that was used previously to arrive at a delineation? Does anyone know?
It was mostly geographical, I think.
Geographical.
Used to be signs. I mean, my whole lifetime when I was a kid, when you were riding around, you'd see a sign, just a wooden sign nailed to a tree, a cypress tree that said, you're now entering inland waters. And
Gotcha.
that was your notification. And I'm sure it showed up on charts and things like that potentially, but very simple. But it makes this decision is ill-based. They need more. Again, it's one of those situations where if they did a little bit more study and talk to people who measure this thing and understand it a little better, they could make better decisions, I think.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, yes, sir, Commissioner Couch.
Yeah, I just agree with what I'm hearing here. This issue of discussion of salinity, even if you talk to the longtime watermen and throughout the county, I mean, there's just one big collective eye roll. They're going to have to do a better job of presenting things like this. If they want to affect change, then that's going to benefit all, then they're going to have to do a better job. When I was reading this, preparing for the meeting today, I was just, good gracious. That's all I could think to say. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And also, Mr. Chairman, if I might add, this proposal, from what I understand from a lot of the people involved with this that I've talked to, it has some weight behind it. I would like to, if we could, if we do adopt this, to send us out to some of our normal channels, but also to some of the other channels as well. If it is adopted, I'd like to have it sent to the North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission, Steve Murphy, Director of North Carolina Marine Fisheries Division, North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, Gordon S. Myers, Executive Director of North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, all 21 coastal counties, Representative Bobby Hainig, Representative Edward Goodwin, Speaker of the House Tim Moore, Senator Bob Steinberg, Senate President Pro Tempore Phil Berger, Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest, and Governor Roy Cooper.
Okay. Pleasure of the board. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
Aye.
sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell.
And I'm not.
No, I know.
One of the things that we have been asking and asking and asking and asking and asking is that when the Division of Marine Fisheries starts looking at doing amendments to the fisheries plan, and we've asked them and asked them and asked them, let our fishermen be a part of it. And that way we can get less of this back and forth, and maybe we can present a good common sense amendment to any fishery plan that everybody can buy into. That is something that I have been on the bandwagon for ever since I've been involved with with my office here as a county commissioner, and one of the things I've been trying to get pushed forward through the Division of Marine Fisheries. I am proud to say, December 17th, the flounders we've all had issues with, Amendment 3 scoping meeting. In other words, they are allowing our fishermen to be a part of the scoping to put together Amendment 3 for the flounders. December 17th, in this room here at 6 o'clock, they'll be having a scoping meeting that our local fishermen can sit here with the Division of Marine Fisheries, the biologists who are in charge of the Southern Flounder Fishery Management Plan will be here to discuss Amendment 3, and hopefully we can get some good changes, good common sense stuff done to our flounder fishery. So I wanted to put that out there so that get it on record so that we can start publicizing this even more so than it has been. And already with our Dare County Commission for Working Watermen, they've already put a flyer together, and we've already started going out to the fish houses and marinas and starting to put the word out. So that's good news, and I'm glad to be a part of that. Our day in history in 1978, I'm sure all of us here on the board remember this. The People's Temple cult leader Jim Jones led his followers to a mass murder-suicide in Jonestown, Guyana. I'm sure we all remember that. And on a lighter side, in 1928, Mickey Mouse made his first film debut in Steamboat Willie, the first animated talking picture. And it's gone a long way since animation has come since 1928. And with that, I want to thank everybody in Dare County, and of course all of my board members here and all of our staff in Dare County. A very happy and very thankful Thanksgiving. And I am thankful to work with this fine group of gentlemen here and with the staff we have here in Dare County. And I'm also thankful to have many friends here in Dare County as well. Thank you all, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Howe. A lot of hard work there with the fishing industry, and appreciate all your hard work there.
Thank you.
County Manager.
Yes, sir. One thing, I got a letter, and it's not signed, but it's a good letter. So it's from what they named themselves the Hatteras Island 11. Back in October, as you know, we had another storm, and we had a road closure down there, and I got a call that said we've got a group of people, of 11 people down there that are scheduled to go on a trip. This was a Friday. On a Saturday morning, they were headed to Ireland, and they couldn't get off the island because the road was closed. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I don't know, and I'm sorry that the sheriff has left. But I called the Chief Deputy Derringer, and I said, Jeff, we got a problem. What can we do? And he kind of mumbled. He says, I'll handle it. That was it. I'll handle it. And I don't know how many of you all know Jeff, but when he tells me he's going to handle it, he handles it. And I don't really give it a lot more thought after that.
Yes, sir.
And so he handled it. And so I got a letter, I'm not going to read the letter, but from the Hatteras 11 that basically was thanking the sheriff and his deputies and for what they did. They put those folks on a deuce and a half and took them through I don't know what all to get them to the other side so that they didn't miss their trip to Ireland. It was Major Derringer that put it together, but Kelly Hill, Vernon Lee, Dave Safel, Dylan West, and Greg Wilson were the deputies that went out in that mess and got those people where they needed to be. So it's not always an emergency, it's not always somebody that's sick, it's not always something, but our folks are really working hard to try to solve problems, and I wanted to commend those deputies and Chief Deputy Derringer for taking care of those people. He made 11 people really happy, and that was a good thing.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yes, he did.
Thank you, County Manager. Public Information Officer, Ms. Hester, do you have anything for us this evening?
No, sir.
Thank you. Our Sally from our Finance Department, do you have anything for us this evening?
Commissioner Ross mentioned that we had an audit committee meeting today, and I just wanted to let you know the full audit report will be presented to the board at the December 2nd meeting.
Great. Thank you, Sally. That brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. I'd just like to take this moment as well to wish my fellow commissioners a happy Thanksgiving. This is certainly my personal favorite holiday, where you get to really appreciate your loved ones and your family and share good times with you. And unfortunately, this Thanksgiving, I have to go to Virginia on Wednesday for a burial of one of our family members, but we will certainly be thinking about him at this difficult time at Thanksgiving, but certainly appreciate him as our family member. And I want to also wish those citizens out there that certainly will be listening to this at some other future time, since we weren't able to do it live tonight, but wish everyone in the county and our employees a very happy Thanksgiving. And with that said, is there a motion to adjourn until 9 a.m. on December the 2nd?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Ross.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
One of these.